Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and thank you for coming to today for the workshop that Jamak has for us. Content, remind me the full title, content something. And I'm so sorry, I have a brain blip. Jamak has been working for the district since August, no, July, sorry. Every month he has been giving us a workshop related with something as we were talking before, that you have to pay a lot of money to get trained to do this, and he's doing that for us for free. And that is something which is highly appreciated. At least I appreciate it greatly, for sure. And I'm very happy that he's here today to give us this workshop. And with that, I give all the mic to you, Jamak. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. Thanks everybody for being here, whoever's here live and whoever's watching this afterwards. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. As always, let me start with my disclaimer about this series. The things that you've watched and I'm about to say are only to provide a roadmap. They are not meant to provide a step-by-step direction on how to do this. They are designed for you to be able to know what you need to know and then go and find it. Um, this is session 8, I believe, in this series. It's titled Content Creation Strategies. If it's the first time you're coming across these videos, I strongly suggest that you go on the district YouTube channel, find the playlist, and watch them from the beginning because there is a method to the madness. There are some prerequisites to this. This session specifically does have a very strong prerequisite, and that's the client avatar session. I think it's number 6, if I'm not mistaken, that's in the series. That one, you should have done that work in order to be able to do a proper job of this. Otherwise, this will be a very difficult session to pull through in general. So this particular session has a lot of importance in my opinion, and that's in the sense that if you get this one step right, everything else kind of falls into place. If you have the dedication, the devotion to do this right, everything else kind of resolves itself. If you have money and you're planning on hiring contractors to do the rest of the work, for example, make your website for you, do your content publishing on social media and whatnot for you, edit videos, do all of that kind of stuff that a contractor does. This one thing is the one thing that should not be contracted out. You should do it yourself. This is the thing that's your voice. It's the thing that causes people to build a relationship with you, develop trust, brand you, everything goes with it. So I strongly recommend that you do not hand out your content creation to somebody else, the creative part of it, right? So the actual mechanics of it, you may have somebody help you with various things that we'll talk about today, the technical aspect of things, but the actual content that comes from your mind, from your heart, from your experience, that should be absolutely 100% yours. So what I'm going to talk about today is a method that I've used personally multiple times for different projects. I still use to this day for projects that I work on, and I've used for many clients, and it works. It works every time. But again, it's time consuming, and it does take dedication and a certain level of discipline, and you'll see why. So before I start, just in chat, if you guys can open your chat panel there, I'm going to ask you some questions because the way I go through this session is going to kind of depend on the people who are here live with me. I've always told you, because you're here live with me, you have a bit of an advantage over people who are who are not, who watch the video after the fact. And that advantage is I hope to be able to get you started at least on whatever it is that you're working on. So you can build on it as you go away. You kind of look at it as homework, for example, that you'll go away and you work on it until next session. All right, so in chat, say yes if you are already working on something. Meaning, since we remember when we started this, for some of you, I think two or three of you, more than that, some of you that have been around since the beginning, at the beginning, I said pick a project that you're working on. So everything that I say is applicable to that project. So if that's you, please type yes. So I have an idea of how many people are in that position. Okay, so we have enough people that are there. All right, so the next thing I want you to do in chat, and I'm not gonna stop for you to type this, but put it in chat that way I know. Give me a general topic that you're working on, right? So, um, uh, Ray, can you mute that, please? So it's kind of distracting me. Sorry. So whatever the thing is that you're working on, I want you to put the subject in the chat in like a couple words. Don't write me an essay on there. I just, if it's Toastmasters, just put Toastmasters. If you're planning on helping people who have Alzheimer's, put helping people who have Alzheimer's, something like that. So I just want to get an idea of what kind of topics we're working on here. All right, while you do that, what's the challenge, right? What is the problem here? Why is content creation a difficult thing to do? Why do many people fail at it? I'll tell you, when I work with clients, 90% of the time at the sales table, when I tell them that you got to create your own content and I insist on that, the deal falls apart. Because I basically say I'm not going to contract out your content. That doesn't make sense. I'd be doing you a disservice, and they don't want to do their own content, and it falls apart. I've worked with dentists, attorneys, all kinds of professions where they say I am too busy doing my own job and I don't have time to create content. It makes sense, right? It makes sense in a lot of ways. So here's my next question for you that you can maybe type in chat again. The question is, knowing that this is the most important thing in your marketing, in your digital marketing, and I would even venture to say in your analog marketing, because they're connected to each other. They're not two separate things. How much time per week, let's say, are you able to put into creating content? So how many minutes, how many hours are you able to put into your content creation per week? Okay. All right. So that's very good. So my recommendation is, as we go through this strategy that I'm going to talk to you about, think about blocking off time, right? Block off time, whether it's every day or once a week. Block off time as if you have an appointment with somebody. Block off time on your calendar. Kill all the distractions. That's the thing you're going to be doing. You're going to be creating content. So this session today is about giving you a roadmap, a methodology, helping you build a system to be able to sit down and do the creation when your block time comes up. In other words, you don't sit there wondering, what am I going to do now, right? So the actual concept is very simple. It's about creating a mind map, right? It's about creating a mind map of the content. But there are literally hundreds of people that I've said this to, and they don't do it. Why they don't do it, I don't know. That's why I said you need to have the discipline to be able to do this, right? So you can use any mind mapping tool that you want. You can even do it on paper if you're more if it's easier for you to do it. I tend to like to work with this stuff in on a digital platform. So I'll introduce you to one that I use, but please you don't have to use this one. You can use any you want. There are tons of them out there with different look and feels and everything. So I'm about to this one. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Ayoa or something like that. I'll put the URL into chat so you guys that are, if you're not able to see it, you have the link. So this one, if you have a Google account or I think even a Facebook account, whatever, you can get logged in. There is a free version that you can use. I am using the free version right now. And when you get here, the option that we want to use is mind map, right? So you create a mind map and you basically, it's a very simple tool. And it gives you the different types of map, right? I usually just go for a normal map. These are more fancier maps, and it has templates and stuff that you can get into. But for the purpose of what we're doing here, we can just use this. I'm going to use the outline of the course of this course that we're working on today, just to make things easier, so I don't have to think because I'm not feeling very well today. My brain is kind of foggy. I'm just going to use because I already have I've done this for this course way like I think 7, 8 months ago, probably in June. So we're going to use that. So we're just the name of the course is Your Voice to Millions. Okay, whatever you put a description if you want. That stuff is not important. All right. So the central idea, right? That's the heart of your mind map. That's the thing that you wrote in chat, right? The thing that the big topic that you wrote in chat is gonna go in there. So it already gave it to me, right? You see that? It already put it in there. This software here is kind of fancy. You can change colors, you can do stuff, but then that stuff is not important. But here's what happens. When you think about that idea, that thing that you want to teach, all of us are potentially teachers, we're storytellers. We want to share something with the world, right? That's hence your voice to millions. That's what you're trying to do. What are the main topics, the main categories of the things that you're going to teach people? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. What's the big topic? What's the big area, right? Those two, three, four, five, whatever may be, those pillars that are super important in what you need to teach, right? That's going to be the first sort of branch of this tree. So right here, for example, for this particular one, I have your website. So we'll just put website. And I'm just going to build one branch out, but I will give you one more example here to just, if you wanted to. So for example, um, content, which we're talking about today, is another one, right? But let's build this out. So website. Then I think about what are the things that I can teach regarding a website. Topics, right? What are the major things that I can teach about a website? All right. So if someone wants to build their own website, what's the first thing they need? They need a domain name, right? They need to go register a domain, right? So I'll just put domain. And then again, there's the second one would be hosting. You need to have a hosting account to be able to host your website. By the way, if you're interested in this is literally one of these sessions that we've done. I think it's the second one that we did. And then it's the platform that you use. The one I suggested, and we talked about was WordPress. You use WordPress. And then let's just stick with these three things, right? So then what is the next thing? Each one of these things has a bunch of things underneath it that you have to address, that you have to talk about, that you have to teach people, right? So WordPress, for example, you you have installation, then another one you have is widgets, for example, and then maybe because I'm trying to keep going so I can show you how in depth I can go. Maybe under widgets, there are some necessary widgets you want to talk about, maybe SEO, and but this is in this context, right? So out here, out here, you're going to have another main thing in this particular case, that's SEO. This SEO is going to be different than this one out here. This is a pretty simple sort of mind map, and you can see that it can go on for a long time, right? You want to stop at a point where, in terms of detail, where you can talk about it for maybe 10 minutes, the magic 5 to 7 minute mark, right? You want to be able to talk about that topic for that amount of time, right? So it's not so detailed that you're getting in the weeds, right? But it's not so high level either that you're going to need to talk for half an hour, for example, or an hour in order to cover enough of that topic for them to be able to, for your audience, for your students, for your followers to be able to put it to work, right? So that's the level of detail you want to stop at. How much content? My recommendation usually is that the boxes, the branches at the very bottom, like I mean in this level, at the lowest level, they should add up to about 60. And the reason that's a good mark is because that's about a year worth of content if you publish once a week, right? So you want to have about 60 topics, right? So these are, each one of these at this level would be a topic. Not necessarily at this level unless the category that you're going down ends at this level, right? So meaning, for example, if installation, there's nothing else, you can talk about installation for 5 minutes, then that's it. That's where you stop. You don't go another level down. In other words, not all of these things. So this branch right now is 1, 2, 3, 4 levels away from the main branch. Maybe on this side, it's only 2 levels down, and that's fine. That's not an issue. But basically, what the point you want to get to is the point where you have about 60 topics on your mind map. And it does not have to cover everything. You don't have to, talk about all the nuts and bolts of everything. You want to have enough topics to be able to have 60 on there and then work with that. The next thing that happens is you need to schedule these, okay? And this is an important thing to do. When you, on your calendar, right? Remember I said block off time. On your calendar, you decide the sequence in which you want to do this in, because some of these things have dependencies on each other, right? For example, if you don't talk about the domain name, the hosting does not mean anything. If you don't talk about hosting, WordPress does not mean anything, right? So if I started talking about WordPress, then I'm missing hosting and I'm missing domain. There are dependencies. It's not always like that, but a lot of times it is like that because you're building on the ideas that you're talking about and you're moving forward. So for that reason, you need to know what comes first, what comes next. You can't just, put it in a randomizer and randomly put them on your calendar. So you decide on the order, and then you take each one of these topics that's about 5 to 7 minutes, let's say, long, and you put them on your calendar. The appointments that you made for yourself, the block time that you did, you put it on your calendar so that when that appointment comes up, you look at it and you know, oh, today I'm going to be talking about the installation of WordPress. There is no thought. right? You don't have to sit there in front of the computer and think about what am I going to do here. Because you're already an expert in this, it's not going to take you a lot of research to be able to do this, right? So if you said I'm going to spend 2 hours a week doing this, if you already know this, know what you're going to talk about, and it's if it's coming from the prior knowledge that you already have because you're an expert in this topic, then it's just a matter of putting your content out there. There's no barrier there. There is no research that needs to be done. Now, there are other ways of doing this, and if you don't know enough about the topic, and I'll go into that in a minute. But for right now, we're talking about a topic that you know already about. It's something that you're an expert in. Now, the format, right? What format do we want to do this? This is my personal preference, but I have data that proves that this is better than doing it in other ways, and that's doing it in video. Regardless of what it is that you're talking about, if you do it in video format, it's better, and I'll explain to you why. Video is the only modality that can be turned into audio and text as well. So if you sit in front of the camera like this, for example, and you just talk about that topic for 5 to 7 minutes, right? Imagine you have a Toastmasters speech that about installation of WordPress, for example, right? Even if I didn't do screen sharing or anything like that and just talked about it for 5 to 7 minutes, obviously the video itself is a piece of content. So you've got that right there. Then you can extract the audio from that. And you have the audio file, which could become a podcast very easily without too much trouble. And then you could transcribe that. You could use software to transcribe that. And then you could go in and you could correct the English a little bit because the spoken word is not always the way you want to write. Sometimes it is, but not always, right? You need to do some corrections. If you have a budget, you can send the video out to an editor, and the videographer will be able to edit the video, will be able to extract the audio, clean up the sound, get it back to you, right? So you get two files back like that, and maybe an MP4 or a whatever video format file, and you get an MP3 or whatever kind of audio format file that's ready to go, right? So those two pieces of content are very, very important. You got two big pieces of content. And then the third one is the transcription, which could be, like I said, you could spend a little bit of time and clean up the English, or you could get it over to a writer, right? If you have a copywriter of some sort, you can get it over to them. Like I said, if you have the budget, and they can clean it up for you, and now you have an article, right? So technically, what you could end up doing is you could populate your whatever video platform you're using. So if you have a YouTube channel, if you have a Vimeo channel, if you have a Facebook video channel that you're using, that one video that you produce now can be uploaded to all of these platforms. There are tools out there, software tools that you pay for, that send your video out to a whole bunch of video hosting sites that they can put up there. Now, why is that significant? If you remember when we talked about SEO, I talked about backlinking to your website. When your video is posted on YouTube, on Vimeo, on all these variety of hosting sites, if the URL to your website is also on the video description, that's a backlink to your website. So it actually has SEO value. And then the keywords that you put into the description of your video basically tell the search engine what your video is about. The same is true about your audio file. If you took the time to set up, there's a plugin you can use on WordPress that allows you to host a podcast off of your website. And then that podcast, you got to go through some steps and publish it on the various podcasting platforms. Once you've done that, every time you upload the file into your, basically you post the audio file onto your WordPress, it automatically pushes it out to the podcasting platforms. Now, podcasts are popular enough that some people use podcast engines like search engines, right? So they go onto a podcast provider like iTunes, for example, and search for a particular topic to see what they can listen to on their way to work, and your name could pop up, right? So, and then lastly, obviously, I mean, this goes without saying, your article published on your website strengthens the value of your website because you're adding content to it. Google loves content. And there's a whole bunch of keywords in writing that's there. And when the search engine bots crawl your website, they have the ability to read basically what's on the on they know what's on the video file base, right? And what you could do then is you could have one blog post on your website with the embed of your video and an embed of your podcast as well, right? So one blog post that week has all of that on there, right? But we're not done yet, and I'm kind of touching on the session that's coming up. See, the next session that we have, and this is the reason I talk about this in this format. I'm talking about behind the scenes of this course right now because it is content creation. I literally did exactly what I'm telling you guys to do back in, I think it was June. I can't remember. Whenever I committed to doing this, right? So I'm looking at the course outline, and the next one is video marketing, right? Now, why is the next one video marketing? Because I just told you the best strategy to create content is video. So the next thing you need to know naturally is how to play with video. What do we do with video, right? So that's naturally what the next one is. After that, the one after that is social media marketing. Why is that important? Well, and this is very related to content. You Once you're done with your article, right? Once you're done with that main piece of content for that week that you were working on that we just talked about, you could take little tiny pieces of that content. It could be sentences, it could be an infographic about that, it could be, depends on what your abilities are, right? But the simplest form of doing that is you can take one phrase, one sentence, one idea of that, go to a platform like Canva, for example, that we'll discuss when we talk about social media. Just pick a background color, stick the writing on there with your logo, right? And that's it. You've got an Instagram post now, right? So if you have the ability to take the thing that you just talked about in 5 to 7 minutes and come up with 7 short pieces that are within the same topic, now you have daily social media content that can be scheduled to go out. Does that make sense? Just give me a nod if it makes sense. Okay. So what you've done now is you sat down, let's say in whatever, this now depends on your, I'm just looking at the last person that gave me time, 2 hours, right? You sat down for 2 hours, you recorded your content, and then remember I said content creation, not the entire project, right? So then once you've done that, you could take, depending on, because sorry, I'm trying to, my mind trying to catch up here. It should literally take you 10 minutes to record the content, because as I said, you already know the content. It's if it's a 5 to 7 minute speech, you should be able to take 5 to 7 minutes to do it. So with the setup of the camera and all that stuff, it should take you 10 minutes to do it. Now you might say, well, I don't want it to be, like face the camera like this and do it. I want to have a presentation and I want to do a voiceover on a presentation when I do it. No problem. If you do that, you've kind of done it backwards, meaning you've already done the writing and all that. Now you're creating a video, right? So if your brain doesn't work in the same way that I just described, and you're a better writer, you're a better creator when it comes to writing, you have to sit at a keyboard and that's how the ideas come out, then that's fine. Sit down, type it out, and then you create a presentation off of that and you read it and you do a voiceover on it, right? So there's different modalities of doing this. The way I described it is what works better for me because I'm a better speaker than I am a writer. I can take any topic that I know, turn on the camera, and I can talk about it, and that's, it's not an issue, right? I can go on and on for hours. So knowing that about myself, you can yeah, laugh. Knowing that about myself, I can use that as an advantage, right? But there are people who are better at writing, right? You sit at a computer and you just go on and on, right? That, if that's you, do the writing. And then, but as long as your writing doesn't take 5 hours to edit, right? So that's not gonna work. You have to find the right way that works for you. I've got so many people relating to this stuff laughing. So basically, what I'm trying to say is you create your video, you create your podcast, you create your blog post, and then you also create your social media content. One a day, right? You sit down one time, everything for the entire week is ready to go. My recommendation is, I'm depend like if you're putting 2 hours a week into this and you already know your topic, you should be able to get ahead of schedule very quickly, right? You're probably gonna have 3 4 weeks in advance ready to go, and I suggest you do that because life happens, right? Something happens. If you have children, your children get sick, all kinds of stuff come up, and all of a sudden you can't work, goes crazy, and you may miss a week, and you don't want your sort of flow of content to go out, right? So remember, I'm just like, we're getting far enough into this series that I can keep pointing back to previous sessions that we've done. Remember, we talked about leads, right? Lead generation and nourishing your leads. Well, this is the content that nourishes your leads, right? So once you've developed your content, if you already have a subscriber base, then what you do is you write a short email and you put the link in the email and say, hey guys, I just wrote about such and such, or I just shot this video about such and such, check it out. And you send this email out, all of a sudden, if you have 100 people who usually open up your emails, all of a sudden you immediately have 100 YouTube hits, video hits, right? And I've seen this happen, and it gets more and more, right? The amount of hits and the amount of viewership increases as you're doing this work, because you're continuously, remember I said that discipline is critical here. If you do it one week and you don't do it in the next week, you do it for a month and take a month off, this does not work. You need to be consistent. You have to be consistent. You're training your audience to see stuff from you on a regular basis. All right, so let me stop there, answer or try to answer some questions, and then I will go to some challenges that you might face um, if you decide to do this. All right, Yuri, I think you're helping me with my questions. Do we have any?
No, we don't have any question.
Should we write the question?
Ellie and Ella both have questions.
Oh, okay. Ellie is asking you, will you teach us how to do a voiceover and presentations?
A voiceover?
Yeah.
Okay, Ellie, can you unmute yourself maybe and just tell me what your question is?
Okay,
Which,
well, I'm just starting to do a video series based on STU's 77-day video challenge, and I'm finding it's impromptu. It's like learning how to be comfortable on video and learning technology, but I
Mhm.
think I suck at it because it's like, okay, what's that word? What's that phrase kind of thing? I feel like my inspiration comes more with writing. And
Mhm.
apparently, I'm told by a lot of people that I have a nice voice as well. So I'm thinking that might be better for me, but
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm like, I suck at technology. I learn as I go, and even then sometimes. So I'm curious about that, if that might be part of the process or not.
Yeah, so next session, when we talk about video, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
We'll talk about some technology you can use because video isn't just this, right? Video can be in many, many different forms, and I'll try to come with some tools to address that and other challenges that people have when dealing with video.
Okay.
And
And I'll,
maybe I'll also recruit Ray to help me out since he's been doing a bunch of video this year. That might be good.
okay, great. Thank you. And also in terms of presentations too, because I've never had to, I've done slides at work years ago, but I haven't done any presentation slides or anything. So that process as well and
Yeah,
the
so
technology. Yeah.
that one's a little bit harder. I mean, in
Okay.
terms of presentation, if you're talking about the design of it, I'm not a graphic designer, right? And it's just my taste is always very simple. Put as little as possible on there
Mhm.
and go with that. But people have different tastes, right? I think again, I will introduce tools that
Yeah.
will help you put it together, but I can't. I'm not a designer, right? So
Yeah.
there's
I
you,
mean
you have
tools.
to. Yeah, for sure. And let me add this as well. And
Yeah.
this is one of the challenges. So like this is a good question. I don't want to use it as a segue because I know at least one other person has a question, but I want to address it here. One of the biggest challenges that many people face is that sort of perfectionism, right? It has to be perfect before there is no such a thing, right? It just you can't achieve that. You start with whatever you can do, commit to getting the content out and do it in whatever possible form, even if you hate it, in terms of the look and feel, right? But the content is going out there, right? That life-changing content, the reason, remember your why, right? The reason you're doing whatever it is you're doing, that's still achieved even if your video looks horrible, right? Because they're still hearing the message that should not stop you, right? Like you should have a post-it or something on your desk that says just do it, right? Or just get it out. Like or your words are going to change a life, right? Because we have a tendency to just keep editing things and keep editing things and keep it just it's not never going to be good enough, right? Because we're the worst critic of ourselves. We always are, right? So we want to just get it out. If you go and look at, I don't know, what's a popular, like the Joe Rogan podcast, for example. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or not. The guy has multiple million downloads with every single podcast that he posts. Multiple million. It's insane, right? If you go back, but he's been doing this for probably it's close to 10 years now, maybe 8 years now. If you look at the old ones, the first ones are still there. If you go listen to those, you won't believe how bad they are. His interview skills suck. The quality of the audio sucks. I mean, it's just horrendous. And he's not shy about that. He's like, look, I didn't start this to make money out of it. I started it because I just wanted to talk to my friends, right? I am not an interviewer, but he's done multiple a day. He's done multiple 3-hour podcasts a day, right? So every single day of his life that goes on, he's getting better at what he's doing, right? And that's all we can do, get a little bit better as we go along. So my tip, not just to you, to anyone, to myself even, is don't criticize yourself so much. Instead of trying to look at how good your content is, think about the impact it's going to make to the person who's at the receiving end of the content, right? So remember that client avatar that you did, that person that needs your help, that person that's desperately sitting there waiting for that one sort of extremely thirsty, waiting for that one drop of water to come. That person needs that content. So you need to get it out. If you're sitting on it and editing it, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's my response. But in terms of tools, we'll get some tools over to you when we talk about video next time. That way, you have somewhere to start.
There are a
Thank you.
couple of other questions. Thank you, Ali. Deb is saying, she's saying it's hard just to speak in 10 minutes. I need several hours to do the research, and there is a system to do this.
Yeah,
Is
so I
there a
get the
system to
question.
do
I get
this?
the
Sorry.
question. I get the question. And my answer is maybe it's the wrong topic, right? The topic you're working on, maybe it's the wrong topic. Because I think if you know the topic well enough, it shouldn't take you 2 hours to get ready to talk about it, right? It's there. It just comes up. However, and again, this is another thing I wanted to talk about after sort of this QA session, but we'll talk about it here. Let's say I have a need in my life, right? Let's say I'm approaching 50 years old, right? And I want to learn from a fitness person who teaches people who are over 50, right? My young days of exercising and martial arts and stuff, if I do it now, it will take me forever to heal, right? And I don't want to do that. I want to learn how to do that. I can't teach it, right? I want to learn how to do that. So what do? I'm going to schedule everything, the questions that I have, right? The various questions that I have, meaning what should I be eating? Should I be fasting? Should I be eating carbs? Should I not be eating carbs? Should I be exercising every day? How much stretching should I do? Should I drink? How much water should I drink? I don't know the answer to any of that because this is stuff I want to learn. Then I'm going to go find experts and I'm going to interview the experts. Did that click? I'm going to interview the experts. That interview will be my content. So I'm learning as I'm sharing. But my suggestion is start with, if this is something you're going to do long term, start with something you know. So you get a hang of how to do these things, because trying to learn at the same time as you go forward is a little bit difficult. The other sort of prerequisite there is you have to be able to ask good questions, right? In other words, you have to be a decent interviewer, right? So that's a skill that you'll acquire as you go along as well. But if you're going to start with that, you have to be a decent interviewer. You have to have sort of a dire thirst for what it is you're trying to learn. So at least if you don't have the knowledge, you have the questions. So you can find experts are everywhere, right? Like this we live in, our world today is filled with experts. There's no shortage of experts that want to share their message. So don't have this thought of, well, why would somebody want to work with me? Right? I'm a nobody. I don't have an audience. There are a lot of people like that right now. And they're looking for an opportunity to get their message out. So if you can go on LinkedIn and do a search and try and find experts in the various topics that you're looking for and go from there, right? So one of the mind maps I was working on, and this is for work, this is for ITD work, right, is international students, right? What needs do international students have? One of them is immigration. I don't know anything about immigration, and I don't want to be an expert in immigration. I really don't, it's not the interest is there because I want to serve a group of people. It's not my own need, right? So I'm going to go find immigration consultants who are experts in that situation and interview them. They would love to do it because I am exposing them, I'm marketing them, I'm branding them to a group of people, and they're going to make money off of it. So they'll do it for free, right? So I don't know if I answered Deb's question or not, but hopefully it did address her question. and bring a little bit more value to everybody else. Okay, awesome.
Yes, she said yes. And Ray says, I'm thinking about any risk of presenting substandard content.
Substandard content. Okay. Does that mean, Ray, do you mean that it's content that you're not confident that's useful for people? Is that what I'm hearing?
Kind of. You actually already spoke to it a little bit about it, speaking about your Joe Rogan
Example.
example, in that his early stuff was really crappy when it came to audio quality and delivery. Like, he was just chatting with people. So that's really what I'm working on doing right now. As you've seen and you mentioned, I've been posting some videos, just vlog style, of 35 and 45 seconds of myself doing random things. Is there any risk or danger in presenting that kind of stuff if it's ultimately going to end up being connected to what your personal, like to what your actual business is going to be while you're working out the kinks, so to speak?
Yeah. So I understand. My thought on that is that as long as it's in line with the career path that you're choosing, with whatever you're choosing to brand yourself as, there's no risk because people will see the growth, right? It's authenticity, right? They'll see that you started somewhere and you've improved continuously to get to where you are. The risk that's there, and this is not addressing your particular question, but it's a little bit of a variation to what you said, is if you're jumping from one branch to another in terms of content, you won't really develop a good audience, right? You kind of have to have your audience. That's why I said do your client avatar work first, so you know who you're addressing to. At least have an idea of why you're doing what you're doing and who it's going out to. That way, you're not sort of jumping from one irrelevant topic to another, right? If you talk about the value of gold one day, and then you talk about video editing another day, and you talk about walking on the third day, they're all over the place, right? And people, you're not branding yourself as anything other than maybe confused, right? So you want to make sure that you have a direction that you're going in. That's the only risk I can see with just sharing content on a continuous basis. But as long as you have some sort of a direction, I don't see any risk in it. Go ahead, Yuri.
Jacqueline, I prefer if you open your mic and ask your question because you have more than one there.
Okay, thank you. I think that was a great app that you shared. It really helps to figure out the core, the major topic that we can discuss during a meeting or a Toastmaster session or even online. So you use an example every time you just put on one word. So is
Yeah.
it always, is it the best practice to just put on one word, or it's more of a sentence?
Great question. Great question. So you wanted to, because this thing grows, right? You can imagine if it's going to get huge. You want to keep it as short as possible, but as long as you understand what it is. This particular tool that I shared with you, some other mind maps don't have it. This one allows you to attach things to it, allows you to put notes on it, right? So if as you're doing it, something comes to your mind and you're afraid that you might forget it by the time you want to sit down and actually do the content, because that happens to me, right? Like if I'm in the zone and I'm kind of working on figuring out the topics, and then I come back to sit down and work it, and there's just one word, and I'm going, oh, what was I thinking? Like, what about it, right? And it just doesn't come. You can attach a note in there to that box that kind of reminds you, maybe point form of the stuff that you wanted to go over when you thought about that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah, no problem. If
My,
you use a different tool, let me just, because I hate restricting people to one single tool. It makes me feel like I'm promoting that tool. If you use any different tool, what you can do is simply you can have like a Google Doc or something like that, and then take the link and hyperlink the word to that doc. That way, there's something there that you can refer to.
Okay, thanks.
No
Uh,
problem.
By the
well,
way,
my
sorry.
my
She
second
has a follow-up, yeah.
my second question is, so you mentioned there's a software that can help people to get a transcript from a
Mm-hmm.
video. What?
Okay. Are you frozen or are you with us?
She froze.
Yes. Oh, she's back. Okay. So most of the newer video hosting sites do it automatically. Like YouTube does it automatically. You just got to go in there and turn it on, and it does it automatically. Facebook does it automatically. Zoom does it automatically. Like there's a setting in Zoom that you can turn on, and once your recording is done, it spits out a transcription as well with timestamps, right? So it has everything on there. If not, worst case scenario, right? Go on a site called Fiverr with two V's, right? And you can hire contractors for $5. That's what it's called, Fiverr. And you can find contractors overseas in India, in the Philippines, who have good English, and they'll charge you very little money to sit there and watch a video and transcribe it for you.
Okay, do you mind to type it
The
out?
site, yeah, the
Yeah.
site is just Fiverr, like that, I think. Oops, I sent it to Ellie. Sorry. I think it's like that. If you search for it, if it doesn't come up, search for it, you'll find it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Um,
Who's next?
to Ella.
Ella.
Ella, you have a question.
Oh, I just wrote the question.
Sorry?
I wrote the question, but well, yeah, I would love
Yeah,
to.
I just want you to
Oh, thank
say.
you. Of course. So, my first question was that what content scheduler do you suggest? Because there are like so many of them. And
Yeah. Yeah, so when you say a content scheduler, you're talking about social media,
yeah, and social media.
right? So I'd like to save that for the social media session because this isn't about social media. When I say schedule your content in this session, what I mean on just on your calendar, whatever calendar you use, or even on a, on a spreadsheet or whatever, know what topic you're going to work
Okay.
on that week, right? So let's say you block off your time from 10 a.m. to noon on every Monday to work on your content.
Mhm.
When you click and open up that appointment on your calendar, it should have the topic that you're going to work on or a note or something on there. That's what I mean by scheduling it at this point of time, right? What you're referring to, and is a very good question, is a tool that allows you to schedule your posts, your social media posts, to automatically go out. And we'll talk about that in the social media session.
Thank you. Okay. And then my next question is that imagine that, for example, we have five different topics under subcategories under one
Mm-hmm.
topic. How often should we post them? Is it like on regular basis, or once one area is finished, then we go to the next one, or in parallel?
Are you talking about, again, posting on social media, or are you talking about the blog post?
Uh, Kind of both,
Okay,
right?
so the blog post is once a week, right? So if it depending on, remember the in the steps that I described, I said look and see if they have dependency on each other, right? The topics, do they have dependency on each other? And based on that, decide when to discuss what. But what you might want to do, and this is a great question, right? What you might want to do is you might want to, let's say you have four main topics, right? So let's say I don't know what, nutrition is one thing, physical fitness is another thing, emotional health and wellness is one thing, and like taking care of your mind is the fourth box. The pillars, the main pillars, right? And under each one of these, you have a whole bunch of stuff. You might decide that every month On week 1, I'm going to talk about nutrition. On week 2, I'm going to talk about physical fitness. On week 3, emotional, and on week 4, mental. Maybe, right? Just to keep it sort of flavorful for your audience. Plus, you have some sort of a balance. That question is very, very sort of specific to the type of topic that you're talking about and the content that you're sending out, right? So for each person, that's different, and I think you'll have the answer to that question if you look at your content or when you look at your content, because you'll know, you put yourself in the place of your client, and you think about what happens if for 6 months all they're receiving is about physical fitness, right? That doesn't make for a very well-rounded person, right? They need to eat right, and they need to be able to, whatever, control their thoughts and stuff. And then you mix and match the right ones into that schedule.
I'm so sorry, someone is
Okay, no problem.
yeah, thank you. So that one was for the blog post, and for social media, you said I can ask it in another
Well,
session.
for social media, it follows that, right? So basically, if you follow what I just said, 1 week would be dedicated to that pillar, if you will. The second week would be dedicated to the next pillar, because that's the type of, I mean, if you can do it differently, you can do it one day from each one. It just makes it a little bit more difficult to manage, but you could. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, right? And then there's also, there are things that I'm obviously, like I told you, this is sort of an overview. I'm not talking about it. There are other details, like you can interlink into the other content that you've already published, right? So when you've talked about something already, it's there, you link to it. And when you link to that, that could be a post by itself. It could be a social media post by itself. It kind of refers people back to what you've done 6 months ago, just like I'm doing right now, right? As I'm talking, I'm saying, remember you guys when we talked about lead generation and nourishing your leads, right? If this was a blog post on the website, I'd be linking to it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I got
No
confirmation.
problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I will get Ellie, who has another question for you.
All
And this will
right.
be the last, unless you have more things to say after this.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Ellie, you are there to ask the next question.
Okay. Sorry, the sun's right in my eye. What's the minimum recommendation for doing videos then? Is it once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week? Like in terms of minimum?
There
Or
is
do
no
you,
such thing
no
as
such thing?
minimum, Ellie. There is no such thing. If you said to me, if you were my client and I asked you, remember the question I asked you at the very beginning? I said, how much time can you dedicate per week?
Yeah, and I
If you
think I
said
answered wrong.
if you said it's not per week, it's per month, I can put 2 hours a month in, for example. I'm that busy. I don't have the time. Or, busy always is not the right word. This is not a priority at the moment, right? That's what it means. This project is not a priority at the moment, and I can put an hour a month into it. Then your content comes out at a lower frequency, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
maybe you publish your social media posts at once a week instead of every day. You just have to be consistent. That's the thing, right? If you
Right.
decide to publish once a month, publish once a month. Like you look at this workshop, for example, it's content, right? It's just a little bit different. It's delivered a little bit different. I could have done this once a week, but I didn't have the time to be able to dedicate it once a week, right? So we said once a month. But you can take this hour or hour and a half, whatever that's on here. I could literally post on social media every single day with the content that's produced once a month here. Can you see that?
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That was the last question, Yuri.
I
Should I
don't
go
see
on?
any more questions. That's
Okay,
it.
just a couple more things I want to say. All right. So we talked about what to do. I'm going to talk about, in my experience, the things that stop people from doing this. All right. So I'm telling you the pitfalls ahead of time. That way you can sort of think about it before you go in. Number one, the most important one is if your why is not strong enough, right? Or if it's not clear, if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, um, you just stop. Things get hard, and you just stop doing it. If this does not mean that much to you, in other words, right? And that's, if you're coming from a place of service, it has to do with your audience, right? If you if the reason you're serving that audience is not strong enough, you just will not do it. Things will happen, things will become more important. The priority level of this will go down, right? Um, Today, I woke up with a headache, right? And I just did not want to do this. But the reason I'm doing it is strong enough for me that I said, no, I'm going to do it. Maybe I'll do an hour instead of an hour and a half, but I'm going to get it done, right? And that translates into discipline, right? So at the very beginning of this, I said you need to have discipline in order to be able to do this. This is where the discipline comes from, right? You gotta have that why has to be strong enough. So when obstacles happen and you just don't want to do it, you still get up and do it, right? Feeling shy in front of the camera, feeling like your English is not good enough, you're stumbling on your words, whatever, all this stuff that comes and starts playing games on our mind. If your why is strong enough and if you visually have it in front of you somewhere, right? Whether it's a picture that does that for you, a post-it, whatever it is on your desk somewhere, that usually helps. Number two, so that's the biggest obstacle that I know based on the people I've worked with. Number two is, and I don't, I'm trying to find the words for saying this without coming across the wrong way. Number two is being too stingy with your knowledge, right? Being too greedy, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the right word is for it, right? So the thought that I shouldn't be giving this stuff away for free, right? That thought of I've worked 40 years to get all of this together. Why should I do it for free? Or the other ones I've heard over and over again is, well, my teaching to people, my coaching is give your best content, right? Put your best content out there. Let people benefit from it. And the response is, wait a minute, if I put my best content out there, then what am I going to charge them for? Right? I mean, I want to make money out of this. That causes you to slow down considerably and sometimes stop or put crappy content out there, right? So you start putting bad content out there and it does the opposite of what it's supposed to do. Instead of building trust, instead of building a relationship, instead of branding you as an expert, it does the opposite, because people might try to put to practice what you're telling them and it doesn't work, or if it's not enough information, and if they come back and ask you, you don't want to share, right? Um, what do you call it, from intrinsically don't want to share the idea, so you just stop, right? You don't give them an answer. Again, the trust relationship is gone, right? So you have to be generous with your content, and you have to make sure that even if you have that feeling, you have to understand that that's something you need to deal with yourself. Because someone who, think of it this way, if a wealthy person, and I'm talking about knowledge, I'm not talking about money, a wealthy person does not think about giving. right? That person is not going to run out of stuff. They have it. Like if you're knowledgeable about something and you're continuously educating yourself, that knowledge is there. Another remedy to this situation, which is what Janice and I and Yuri were talking about at the beginning of this before you guys got on this call, is rest assured that over 90% of people will not do anything. Nothing. They'll listen to your content just at most for entertainment. At most. And that's if you're funny and you look good and whatever on camera, they'll just enjoy it, right? And they'll come back for more. But people just generally don't do anything, right? Like most people don't take what's necessary, take the steps that's necessary to go do this, right? So this video series right now, you look at it, people watch it, but the number of people who will actually take the steps to go do this is very, very low, very low. It's not, maybe it's not even 10%. I think it's probably more like 2% is what's realistically the number, right? All right, last one, last pitfall. Don't become attached to your ideas. Okay, so you do this mind mapping thing that I told you about. Don't become too attached to it. Why? Because sometimes your audience asks you to change direction and you should listen to them, right? So through their comments, through their questions, we have an idea, right? We have sort of a guess of what things look like. We have this guess of what our client avatar looks like and what their needs are and what they're motivated by. And we sort of put our content out there and we're experimenting with this, right? And then what happens is sometimes they might ask you questions and say, can you talk about this instead, right? So for example, I may have had my ideas of how to do the video session next time, right? But Ellie asked me a couple of questions. I shouldn't ignore her and say, well, no, I'm still going to talk about this stuff, right? No, there's a request, and that request is legitimate. That means that there's something that I overlooked when I was thinking about and planning my content. So there's a very strong likelihood for people who are experts in something to be rigid with their content, right? Not have enough flexibility. You have to have that flexibility because remember, you're serving an audience. And that service means you sort of flow with them, you dance with them. They want to go this way, you go that way. They want to go the other way, that you go the other way. Unless the direction is a wrong direction and you know that, in which case you should explain why that's the wrong direction and educate them on the topic. So those are the pitfalls. I already talked about technology being a pitfall. Don't allow your lack of knowledge of technology to stop you. Put out whatever you can in whatever format you can. And then from there, you keep making it better and increasing it. So with that, I think I'm going to stop there and deal with any questions or anything, if anything you guys want to talk about, because I think that's enough content for today. Questions? Are you guys able to go out and do this? That's my question. Are you in the 2%?
I don't know. I think I'm in the 98. Okay, sorry.
That's all right. You're honest. I like it.
I'm actually starting into this process, even though I've been listening along all the way along. Why don't I spotlight myself so that I can be on the screen as well?
Yeah.
I am, honestly, I started this process back in July as looking at it as a video content creator, helping to edit and make this content work to go onto the YouTube channel because I found it really interesting. But also, I found myself just this last weekend, I have bought myself a domain name. So I'm now going back to session number 2 to develop my website. And it was actually, I was inspired to go to buy the domain name after a Clubhouse talk in a voiceover group where I was just talking about, building myself a website. Should I do that, or should I just set up an account on Fiverr or whatever? And they all said, build a website. Yeah. Build your own website. Direct everything to your website for voiceover. So all of your demos, everything goes on there and everything links back to that. So I'm going backwards in time and then going to be rebuilding my entire content strategy up from that. The reason I asked the question about substandard content was specifically about the vlog type content that I've been putting up on my Facebook and my Instagram, which is basically just me with my cell phone pointing at it and spouting off some thoughts for 35 or 45 seconds. It's not really voiceover related, but what it is it's putting myself out there in a public way, related in a way that I'm not normally comfortable doing. I'm very comfortable doing it in person. I'm very comfortable doing it in a group, but editing and recording and actually putting it out in a way where it becomes viewable beyond the moment right now, when I can look at you in the eye and say, I'm honest in my intent and giving it the good college try. That was why I asked the question about it is, can you see content strategy being like that kind of content being negative when you actually link all of that stuff back to your business stuff?
No, I can't see it being negative. I can't see why it would be negative. You're sort of exercising your muscles right now to start the race, right? So and everybody sees that. To me, transparency is the way to go with everything, because people know, right? People know right away when, like, what you didn't come out of your mother's womb being a fantastic whatever, right? You started somewhere, and if you're out there with that, what's wrong with that? People see it, and they know that you're honest about your journey, right? You're documenting your journey is what you're doing.
The interesting note, just talking about those videos as well, is learning how to edit videos on an old crappy laptop with iMovie. Means it's actually really easy for me to edit videos on my phone using iMovie because I'm an Apple person. So it's really enlightening for myself personally, learning how to work this stuff from putting myself out there. So I'm seeing benefits from it mentally. I'm just looking forward to continuing the process.
Yeah, just keep doing it. My advice is just keep pushing forward, don't stop. Just keep doing it, right? Commit to putting a certain level of content out there and just keep doing it. The content will get better, the quality will get better, and then the following will increase and the money follows if that's your intention.
Eventually. So yeah, that was my thought, my comment. I have no idea if I'll keep it in the video edit, but we'll see.
Yeah, let me just give you guys an example of one of my clients that's just blew me out of water. This was years and years ago. I was introduced to a gentleman. This is when I lived in California still. I was introduced to a gentleman to go teach him how to use a computer because he was getting frustrated because he couldn't send an email, and he's probably maybe 30 years older than I am. He's an older gentleman. So in one of these sessions where I was teaching him, he said, "Would you like some lunch?" And I said, "Sure, why not? Who's going to say no to eating?" And we were sitting at his kitchen table with the laptop working. So he goes into his kitchen, and I look over and I'm watching him do his thing, and he brings this thing back, just a freaking work of art, right? I can't, like, oh, this is insane. And while I'm watching him in the kitchen, he goes from being really tight and nervous and everything working on the laptop to almost looking like he's floating in the kitchen, right? Just open and just loving it, right? And I sat down and talked to him. Fast forward to, a few weeks after that, we shot the very first video of him cooking, right? He started cooking Persian food in his kitchen, and it wasn't about the recipes. It was about life lessons and whatever. He was cooking and talking at the same time. He was, so critical of himself. Every single time I turned on the camera, he was like, "Oh, this is like this, my English isn't good," all this stuff, right? He took a trip to Europe. He came back a few months later. He said 5 people on the plane came up and said hello to me. So he went from that to becoming celebrity enough that people were stopping him on the plane, right? And that was motivation for him, because these people were telling him that you're helping us, we're learning how to do this and we're enjoying it, we're getting messages. So but when it started, he did not believe in anything, right? And but the continuity of the content was always there. We never stopped until we stopped, of course. For good, right? But we didn't stop for 5 years. Every single week we published content, right? That dedication and discipline was there, and we just continued to publish content, right? So put out whatever you can. And even for him, if you go and watch those early videos, the quality was garbage, right? You couldn't really see what he was doing because it was just like one camera and from like out, a distance. But he didn't have a microphone. We invested in a lapel mic and stuff like that later down the line. But that the initial videos, you watch them, they're garbage in terms of from a technical sort of quality perspective. And he's stumbling all the time as he's speaking, right? But he gets more polished, things get more clean, and it just gets better and better. So just commit to doing your content on a regular basis and stick with that commitment, and everything else will follow.
I think you just answered my question, Jamak, because I was thinking, I feel like I'm doing the opposite of Ray. I feel like I'm doing it backwards. I'm doing this video series right now on self-care. That's my theme for the
Mm-hmm.
77-day video challenge. And I think I look horrible most times. So not horrible, but I don't think I look great. And I'm stumbling sometimes over my words, even though I do speak English. I have written a blog for 5 years, but the focus changed, and then it kind of became everything. And there's excerpts in there I can use. And I'm working towards a memoir in a business. So I feel like I'm doing it backwards. But from what you're saying, it sounds like that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only thing there is that if you don't have focus, right? If you don't know what you're focusing on, and I kind of alluded to this before as well, make sure you know which one you're doing, right? No, I'm not saying don't do all of it, but make sure the audiences may be different, for example, right? So the people who might be into your memoir might not be the same people as are watching the other thing. You need to be aware of that, right? And then when you're publishing your content, if you're publishing it all through the same channel, you got to make sure you feed all these different types of audience that are in there. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
I think so. Well, I mean, a part of the memoir is like my journey of where I went, and then how to overcome and deal with grief and stuff. And there's
Okay.
like
So
self-care,
it's
if you
related.
will. So some of it is related directly, indirectly. Yeah. I'm trying to, yeah,
If it's
in
related,
terms of
it's
the
all right.
theme. Yeah.
If it's related, it's all right. If it's not related, then you got to think about it's okay to have it go out through the same channel. Just be aware that there might be 2 or 3 different segments of your audience there. And that's okay. Each 1/3 of your content, for example, appeals to one group.
Yeah. I mean, the theme is, but some of the content isn't. So, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. No problem.
Okay, I would like to give the mic to Janice, who has a question.
Sure.
Janice, all yours. You're in.
You're
You're
muted.
muted.
Sorry, I'm in. I forgot my question listening to you all. Well, one thought I did have was, as you were talking about how you think and speak, Jamak, you're saying, okay, you can talk on a subject forever as long as you're an expert. Yeah, I could do the same sort of thing. I work best in response to questions. So if you were to ask me about database design and questions, I could talk for a year.
Yeah.
As long as you're feeding me the questions.
Yeah. So, can you come up with those questions?
Some of them, but most of them I've forgotten.
Yeah. So then find a student is the answer, right? Someone who is willing to sit and learn, right? So then you ask them, and that's something that's done as well. Like if you can go out to a person that's in that group, in that audience group, and ask them, what are your five most pressing questions about this topic, right? And you start there, and you build on it as you go along.
Okay, that's a decent idea.
Yeah. So if you respond better, this is what I meant by you got to know your sort of your creativity modality, right? So if you know you respond better to questions, then you can go find the questions. I bet you could find them on the internet too. If you said, the most frequently asked questions about database design, I bet you'll find 20 questions, right? And then you can sit there and answer those questions. That's another good point is you may be, this is actually a very good one. I forgot to mention this. It's very content related. Is you may look at the amount of content that's out on the internet about a certain topic and say, this is already out there. Why do I need to do it? Right? There are hundreds of recipe videos of people cooking. Why mine now? Why should I go out and do it? The reason is you're you, right? And your content is going to be unique to you. It's not going to be like the other ones. Some people will relate to you. Some people will learn from you more than they do from anybody else. Again, this is one of the people that I used to learn from all the time. Was every time this topic came up, his response was, look at your bookshelf. How many books do you have that are on the same subject? Right? Usually it's a lot. And they're all from different authors, right? You don't just buy one book, read it, and you're done. Why do you do that? Because you're looking for different perspectives on the subject matter, right? You keep learning. So don't ever feel like that. Your voice is unique and it needs to get out.
And I guess I comment about generosity of information and putting out good information. When I was in the position, those are the people that I would call in to hire as a consultant to come in to answer my specific problem.
Yeah.
If they'd already done it in a sort of generic way and it was reliable and good and consistent and I could trust them.
Exactly.
Then I'd go trust them with my boss's money.
Yeah. The thought is always, if this is the information I'm getting for free, I cannot imagine what will happen if I pay this guy.
Yeah.
That's the thought that we usually have.
Done.
All right. I saw chat box moving, Yuri. What do I have in here?
Yeah, I'm going to see that. I was focused on one person right now. Ellie was saying, suggesting Janice to write the questions down and have a few questions to think about that. That was more to Janice than anybody else. And
yeah, and I was thinking she could either interview someone and have them ask questions related to the topic, or hand the questions to someone and they read the questions to her. Just a thought. I'm not attached to the outcome, just a thought.
Let me also address what Deb said in there, Yuri, if you don't mind.
yeah, go ahead.
So she's saying my content right now is random based on whatever pops in my head.
Oh,
I need
yeah,
to
I
be
missed
more
that one.
strategic. Yeah, that's okay. So yes, being more strategic helps, but you also sometimes have these light bulbs moments, right? Like you come across something and just there's a spark in your mind and you have to get it out right there and then. I'm also familiar with that. So as long as it's on topic, generally on topic, there's nothing wrong with that either. But what I shared with you today sort of addresses the pain of I don't know what to talk about, right? Like I know generally I'm a, Janice is a database guru, but you just sit her down and you go talk about databases. She's like, oh, wait a minute, like where do I even start? This is a world of information I've gathered over 30 plus years of work. Like that's what the mind map is good for, right? So you do the mind map, you kind of have an idea of what you want to talk about. It gives your brain a little bit of an organization so you can get the content out. But if you have those moments of brilliance, basically, that just something comes in and you feel that need to share it. And then listen to your audience. If they like it, give them more. If they don't like it, maybe keep it private. Go with the stuff that's more strategic.
Thank you for watching this video on the Toastmasters District 96 YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel to watch replays of our volunteer-run workshops, contests, and other events that are happening in our district. Like this video to show your appreciation for the volunteers who work hard to run these events. And remember, we are all volunteers. Thank you.